I think the last time I was in this position in a church, in this place, was probably early 90s. So that's been a few years. So it's interesting to me and for me to be back doing this and or having the opportunity to do this. So, I think back and I think, well, I would have done it this way then. Since then, I was in front of groups at Boeing, so I had a certain style of doing that worked. So it's kind of an interesting place to be where you're not quite sure how you're going to turn out in the moment. So let's do this with somebody in something other than the KJV, probably ESV or New American Standard or one of those. Look up 1 Corinthians 15:2. And whoever finds it first gets to read it.
Oh, sword drill.
Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit about, I guess, how my understanding of salvation has changed. Or not necessarily even changed. Let's say that it's become bigger, that it's grown, that it's more inclusive.
Well, just 1 and 2 here. Now I make known to you, brethren, the gospel which I preached to you, which also you received, and which also you stand, by which also you are saved, if you hold fast the word which I preached to you, unless you believed in vain.
In New American Standard, and is that ESV?
That's NASB, that's New American Standard.
Okay. When they came out in 77, the first translation, may have been earlier. Who has ESV?
Me.
Can you read it?
Now I would remind you, brothers, of the gospel I preached to you, which you received, in which you stand, and by which you are being saved, if you hold fast to the word I preached to you, unless you believed in vain.
It says, by which you, read the next words there.
And by which you are being saved. Yeah.
And there's a lot of discussion, or has been a lot of discussion in the church as to which translation of that is most appropriate. I'm just trying to squeeze as much in as I can here by
Eliminating letters.
Eliminating syllables. So, but within the context, the argument is that there are people who are perishing. And the contrast is we are not that in that group that are perishing, rather we are in the group that are being saved. So, and I have a tendency that I don't know which is theologically correct, but I know that for my life and in my life, I am experiencing ongoing salvation. It wasn't just something that happened when I was 6 and ended there. Rather, it's something that I need continuously in my life. I need that redemptive work, that rescuing work, that salvation to extend into my daily life, my interactions with others, my attempt at living. So I'm going to say for a few minutes, let's think about this ongoing aspect of salvation, because God still works in our life. And I think that for me, it's given me a better understanding of what my ongoing, daily, sometimes moment by moment experience can be through God's gracious supply. To use what sometimes sounds like cliche, but when you need it, it's not. So, a lot of people have said, and I've said it in my own life, what does victory look like? Specifically, usually to circumstance. Whatever we're going through or whatever we're struggling with or whatever appears to be the necessity of the moment. And I'm learning more and more, at least in my experience, that what victory looks like is salvation. It's a manifestation of that saving grace of God in the moment. So let's think about that. You know, there was a point, being a good Baptist, small b, salvation was about going to heaven. And my life, the tone of my life became I was looking forward to something someday. And at a certain point, I wasn't even, because I was angry with God, I wasn't even looking forward to it. You know, I mean, my focus was not down the road. My focus was trying to figure out how I was going to live daily. So I really didn't know. I thought victory looked like, initially, I thought victory in my life, in my early church experience and in early ministry, I thought victory looked like being able to do what I felt like I needed to do in my relationship with God. I wanted to please God not so much to get merit, but I wanted to please God because I had this desire to please God. And I was aware that I was, sometimes that would occur and sometimes that wouldn't occur. And it was easy for me to find what I now would typify, just because it's a meaningful word to me and it is used in Scripture and we'll look at it, a schema, a blueprint to be able to do it. And that worked, you guys have been around me very much, that worked until it didn't. And then I didn't understand why it didn't work. Why do I sometimes feel like using a recipe for a cake and it turns out 40% of the time it's not, or 60% of the time, or even if it was 70% of the time, would you invite somebody over and serve that cake, make that cake, spend time making that cake, not knowing if this was going to be a catastrophic 30% or if it was going to turn out well. So I felt like there had to be a recipe somewhere. And I looked for it and attempted to find it. And kind of fell into kind of a classic Christianity where I was confused as to why it didn't, and I was encouraged when it did, and just tried to continue on. Continue the march, as they say in the military, where you have to use your feet rather than aircraft. I guess it would be continue to fly in the Air Force. Carry on. So, let's look at, so the basic premise that I have right now, that we're going to build off of, is this, that we continue to experience God's saving grace in our lives. And that the reason we do is the same reason that we enter into it at the beginning of our Christian life, which is we come to a conclusion that we're completely and utterly incapable of saving ourselves. If you don't come to a place where you believe you need salvation, you don't get it. If I believe I just need some help, then that's all I need, and I can do the rest. Just supply what I can't do. My basic understanding of the gospel is you can't do it on your own. And I'm not expecting you to do it on your own, nor am I requiring you to do it on your own. And any requirements you have seen in Scripture, God speaking in the Old Testament, is to show you you can't do it on your own. So Paul says in Romans that the law came that sin might be exceedingly sinful, that you might realize when you're confronted with the commandment that I can't do anything else. I will fail. In all of my attempts to merit, I will fail. So Jesus came, again, whether the issue is not, I'm not going to go there. Sorry, erase.
Yeah.
Rewind 3 seconds, forget I said that. So my understanding of the gospel is that Jesus came as to take care of and to manifest his salvation and all that implies, because I couldn't do it. And by his death, burial, resurrection, ascension, glorification, because that's all the good news, that's all the message, that in that there is this unmerited favor bestowed to me that I can, as Jesus says, I came that you might have life and have it abundantly. So it's not even so much, again, from my background, I saw eternity as the focus. Jesus could have said, I came that you could spend eternity in heaven. But Jesus said, I came that you might have life and have it abundantly. Let's look at, let's turn to Romans 12. One and 2. And I'll read it. This is King James. Romans 12:1 says, I beseech you, or I beg you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. So Romans 12:1, there's no chapters and verses, right? But that word therefore, he says, because of everything I've said here, up to this, I'm referring you back to, because of that, I'm asking you to do this. I'm begging you to do this. And I'm begging you because of the mercy of God. So it's a merciful thing that we have the ability to do this. He says, I want to beg you by the mercies of God. He doesn't say by the righteousness of God. He doesn't say by the judgment of God. He says, I'm begging you because of God's mercy that you do this. It says, I want you to present your bodies. The word present there, in the Greek, implies, well, let me back up. So years and years of reading that and hearing sermons on that, usually that has to do with, I learned how to get saved in the Baptist church, okay? And I came back next week and I learned how to get saved in the Baptist church. There was a good evangelical salvation message, okay? So let's switch that up a little bit. Once you get saved, we're going to show you how to rededicate your life, right? And then at some point, we're going to show you how you can surrender to ministry, maybe the mission field, maybe a pastorate. And that was kind of this goal. Get you saved, get you rededicated. Once you're tired of rededicating yourself, you might as well move into the ministry. And then you can rededicate yourself in the ministry. And then, at some point, maybe you can go to India. And teach other people how to get saved and rededicate themselves. And I benefited through a strong salvation message from it. But my understanding of this present your bodies was it was, you're a living sacrifice. And hey, sacrifice yourself to God. And hey, give more. Hey, do. You know how you're going to know that you've completed Romans 12:1? Is you're going to be doing, because you're a sacrifice. You're committed. So present, interesting word in the Greek, it means to stand by. And it's translated over and over again, stand by. In the New Testament, you can go to your Strong's and see or go to your, when I think Strong's, I think a book. That's how old I am. And go to your app and find every usage of that term in the New Testament, and you'll find over and over again, it talks about standing by, like a servant would. What's the Dalton Abbey? Anybody watch that? I don't know anything about it. But I've heard of it, okay? Down, see, that's but so in the big room, right, where all of the meals are served, and you've got the servant standing by, right? Can you picture that? Aristocratic England. Table behind every person, there's a servant. And that servant is standing by, and what is he doing? I'll tell you what he's not doing. He's not on an app on his phone, okay? Because they didn't have it. He's watching. It's his reasonable service. He's not trying to figure out what he should be doing. He's got what typifies what he should be doing is the one that he's waiting on. If the glass is empty, he pours water. If the appetizer is done, he removes the plate. He serves the next. Is that right? Take from the left, serve from the right. So I failed there, right?
You are correct.
I am correct. Well, let's write that one down. Did you get that? I'm correct. Okay. Luckily. The word is also translated Romans 6:13. Neither yield ye your members as instruments of unrighteousness unto sin, but yield yourselves unto God, as those who are alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness unto God. Yield. It's translated yield there. It's also translated 6:16. Know ye not that to whom you yield yourselves as servants to obey, his servants are ye to whom you obey, whether of sin unto death or obedience unto righteousness. So there's this sense of a yielded standing by. A yielded standing by in the service of something else, someone else. Okay? Josh, communications. So I go back, when I think of stand by, it made sense to me when I read it. Stand by. Oh! Communications, military. You ask me a question on the radio, I say stand by. What do you do?
I'm going to keep that communications line open and expect you to come back with the reply.
Right. Very good. That's why he's the rank he is. And he expects that when he says stand by, don't you?
Sure.
You don't want your guy to go, well, he can't tell me, so I'm going to go do something else. Or I'm going to go get busy doing something else. Or, you know what, I think I'll fire up my app and hopefully I'll hear it over the radio. Okay? So there's this standing by that becomes dependent upon the one that says stand by. That's the active agent. Are you the active agent when you're told to stand by? Or is the person that's coming back to you at that point being the active agent that you have to respond to, follow?
The active agent would be the one who gave that order. There is an implied task in the other guy to keep that line open.
So there's an implied tasking. And that tasking is not to decide what you want or what you think is right. That tasking is to stand by. And then the fulfillment of that tasking, once I say, okay, here it is, do you have the opportunity to decide whether to yield to that or not? I guess you do if you don't want to make any rank, right? If you want to be disobedient, then you yield. Okay. And what does that look like? What does yieldedness look like? What does standing by look like? Well, I think standing by should color our understanding of what yieldedness is. You with me on that? Does that make sense? Standing by should be colored by what we understand yieldedness to be. Now, all of this is we gain huge amounts of insight when we understand what I don't want to say nature, but it's the word that comes to mind. Our experience, experiential, practical place is in God's plan. And that experiential, practical place is, I don't have the information that I need to be the servant. Because I don't know what the master requires right now. And if I decide that I know what to do, I won't ask, and I won't stand by, and I won't have anything to yield to except my own understanding of what I should be doing right now. Which is not good if my overall tasking is to do this because it's your what? What does Romans 12 say? Present your body as a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. If you task somebody and they don't understand or they have a need, you don't want them to make those decisions necessarily. Of course, you talk about fog of war, etc. They get to make some decisions, but they don't get to change the task on their own. They don't get to decide. They know what's necessary on their own. Okay? With me? Reasonable service. Stand by. Stand by means stand by. Stand by means stand by. Stand by means yield. Oh, well, there's a difference between standing by, right, and yield. With me there? Play a tape. Let's go to tape. Something you won't see in Sunday school or church a lot. Watch this drive on this dog. How driven this dog is. Oh, Master says, see, it says, find the left leg. Look who that dog's looking to. Look at his attention. So he lets him out and he says, okay, be a dog. Until I say, oh, stop. Watch this. Right there. Look at that dog. Play it just a couple of seconds forward. Look at that dog. Is that a diligent dog? Is he being diligent? Look at him. He's walked away and he said, stay. And you've seen that dog, you've seen his drive for that toy. You've seen his ability to decide on his own what he needs to be doing and what he wants to do. But he walks away with all that drive and all that diligence. Look at the dog's face. Look where the dog's looking. Okay, play it. Go ahead. Let's pause again. Thank you. That's good.
You're standing by back there.
Yeah, standing by. See, there you go. He's yielded. He's not like, wait, I want to see the rest of this. I want to see what happens. How does this end? You know? So he's been teaching him, find my leg, right? Left leg. It's the name of this. He's been teaching him how to heal. He's been teaching him how to submit, how to stand by where he wants him. He's teaching him to yield his doggedness and this drive to the master's will. Okay? With me? He walked away from me. You know, if I'm the dog, I want to go, hey, let me show you a cool trick. I can find your leg from here. You've been teaching me this. This is obviously what you want me to do. Let me show you what I can do. No, the dog yields. The dog is submissive. The dog stands by and waits for the master. The master says, hey, wait. Does he want him healing when he says wait? No. I'll give you the answer. No. Okay? Does he want the dog to decide, well, you really don't want me to wait? You really don't want that because you've been teaching me how to find your leg. I'm going to show you that I'm a good dog and I'm going to find your leg. No, he allows this sense of submission, of subjection, of understanding that he's not the one that decides what needs to occur at this point to occur, but he's still, go ahead and play. Watch where this dog's focus is and tell me about the intensity or laxity of his response. Just another minute, if you just look at the dog. I've told people I love the I'd love to be God's dog. Okay, we can stop. Thanks, Jack. Appreciate it. So, one of the things that's become hard, that has been hard for me in my life, because I have a habit pattern of wanting to please God. And I have a habit pattern of working out of my definition of good and evil. What's delightful to me, or what I find averse. Because we've talked a lot about the definition of good. And it drives us. But we also understand that the definition of evil, subjectively, is what I find averse in my life. And I don't know about you, but I'm driven more by what I find averse or adverse or not delightful. That causes me more, and people that love me, more pain. Because I'll go, I have good reason to be angry about this. This is averse. There is no way that this is God's will, or that this is good for the relationship, or that this will get this accomplished, whatever X is. It must be this way to get this way, to get this. I must do this to get this. Can I take you back to Genesis? You must eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil to be like God. You must do this to get this. You know what God says? You don't have to do anything, because I did it all. I did it all. Okay? Now, here's something I think is your reasonable service. Stand by and yield. So there's a difference between me and Don has told you all about me when he uses the three words frustration, irritation, and exasperation. Anybody that's lived with me knows that I produce that. And I'm really good at it. Okay? There's a difference. Again, salvation. Where is salvation? We started by saying salvation is more than going to heaven. Ephesians says that salvation is more than going to heaven. Okay? In fact, you're already seated there. In fact, it's not about your eternal place, but it's about your position in Jesus. What Ephesians 1 says. Seated in the heavenlies, blessed with all spiritual blessings. Why aren't I experiencing that? Because that's part of salvation. And that's why you're left here, is to see things that you won't see otherwise. As in, I can't save myself initially to secure my eternity. And I cannot save myself from the circumstance that I'm in right now. In the nitty, what do they say, sweet by and by and nasty now and now. In the nasty now and now, God doesn't want me looking forward to the sweet by and by. He wants to talk to me and draw me to relationship with truth. He wants me to experience salvation in the moment. He wants me to experience how did I get saved? I understood I couldn't do it myself. I understood I needed some other I needed a Savior. And it wasn't me. My life has shown me that. For some reason, I realized it at a young age, and I continue to realize it as I live. That my schema, my blueprint, works until it doesn't, and it usually has a catastrophic failure. So I need a Savior. How do I get saved? I understand I'm lost. Understand I have nothing in myself that can do it. I understand God has made a provision and I accept it. And he does it. The basic premise of salvation is the basic premise by which I continue to experience it, and it is the foundation for victory. And it redefines what victory is. Let me walk you through it. I got saved by saying I'm totally and utterly incapable of doing this. I see something in the New Testament that says, at the very beginning, you must be born again. And I'm told something that I can't do. And I realize my complete and utter incapacity to do it. And then I look to God's provision. I hear, love one another. And we go, oh yeah, that's easy. How's that working in your home? How easy is it? The people you care the most about, I'm going to point at you, I clash with. And Laura said, amen. Actually, she wouldn't say amen because amen means so be it, right? She says, oh me, right? Got a boy sitting here, raised him, loving. Boy, we clash at times, huh? It's my fault, too. So he says amen. He says amen.
I'm a pretty good clasher myself.
Why? It sounds so good, and we go, yes, amen, love one another. And then we go home, and we have clashes. And we still love each other, but we have clashes. Why is it hard? You know why it's hard? You can't do it. You are completely and utterly incapable of doing it, but that doesn't mean that God's not capable of doing it through you. See, there's a difference between me trying to act loving to Laura or to my boy and God loving them through me. Huge difference. So I go to God. I don't go to God with a schema. Be not conformed to this world. That's the word schema. Don't use the blueprint that the world uses. Oh, you want to be more loving? Check these boxes. You want to overcome anger? That's mine. Actually, I'm not an angry man. I'm just frustrated a lot. You know? I'm just irritable. You know, I'm not really angry. You want to overcome there? What you do is you go to God and you go, I'm totally and utterly incapable of doing this. But I believe that I will see your miraculous supply by standing by and yielding. Did I do a good impression of the dog? If it's not on YouTube, I mean, if it's not, if it's not picked up and put out there, they're just going to see me going, and never having seen them, they're thinking, this guy's crazy. You can cut that, but I just have to keep doing it. Now, see, I'm not saying, well, I can't do it, so I guess it's not going to get done, and I can just continue to be who I am. No, God wants me to have peace. He's called me to peace. He's called me to life. He's called me to experience all that's in His Son. He put the Holy Spirit in me to take what is Jesus's and make it mine. How does that happen? How do I hold my mouth? What box do I need to check? There isn't one. I know my inability, and I trust His ability. And guess what happens? Guess what happens when that happens? Laura goes, that's not Greg, that's God. Right? I go, when I do that, when I respond, I go, that's not me, that's God. And He builds a testimony in me. can go to others and go, well, you know how I overcame that? No, I can't do that anymore, right? I can't go, well, you know how I've got tapes and books in the back as to how I have overcome in this area. I can't do that anymore. You can say, you know what, I'm totally and utterly incapable. And I'm dependent on God to do it. Now, something else that happens in my life, as an outworking of that, as an outworking of knowing that I am totally and utterly incapable, and there is no blueprint to answer it. There is no schema. There is no box I can check. Then I open my life to God and I go, the only way I'm going to figure this out, the only way I'm going to get by, the only way I can get salvation, redemption, and relief is by your grace and your work in my life. So, here's how this is played out practically. So, years ago I went, yeah, okay, I'm irritated, exasperated, frustrated. I see that as a sin. I see that as missing the mark in my life. I see it not only as missing the mark, but I lose the prize. I don't get this prize, which is God's grace and mercy in my life, which is the experience of grace in my relationships, which is being who I believe I'm supposed to be to the ones that I love. It's the prize. Getting to see God manifested in my life. That's the prize that I miss. So, I'll say it's a sin. And I'll understand sin as something that I'm not supposed to do. And I'll grab onto that supposed, right? Shoulds. I shouldn't do that. I should be a different way. And I commit myself to God, God, I'm not going to be that way. And when I am that way, I'm going to confess it. I'm going to say, okay, I see that I'm an angry man. That's a sin. I confess that. Thank you for your forgiveness. It says he's faithful and just to forgive us. Thank you for your forgiveness. I want to walk in the Spirit, and I move forward. Continue to march, right? And then I do it again. And then I do it again. And then I do it again. Could you just put that on a loop for about 30 some years? And I do it again. And pretty soon I'm suffering under condemnation, etc. Okay? That was my experience for years. I'm failing God. I'm failing God there. I believe that's a sin. I need forgiveness. I need to be filled with the Holy Spirit. Control. Take each step in the Spirit. All I need to do is step each step in the Spirit. What's wrong with me, oh wretched man that I am? Who will deliver me from this body of death? I see a principle of law as strong as and as real as gravity working in my life, where I cannot do this. It kind of sounds like the first step to salvation. I cannot do this. So again, here's how it plays out practically. So I've taken you through the mire and the muck of my 30 years of experience in trying to please God and do what I believed was good and try to operate on the delightful side rather than the adverse side. And now I go, sometimes when God breaks through and I realize I'm totally and utterly incapable of not being angry, because whatsoever is born of the flesh is flesh, and the flesh profits nothing. And I was an angry little kid, and I've been this way. So there. No. don't get to say that, right? But it's true. Whatsoever is born of the flesh is flesh. Flesh profits nothing. So I go to God and I go, obviously my peace is based on something other than you, because I ain't got it. And my joy is somewhere else. The fruit of the Spirit is not if Laura agrees with me. It doesn't say the fruit of Laura agreeing with you is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, self-control. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say as long as the guy doesn't cut you off in traffic. That's the fruit of the guy not cutting you off in traffic, Patrick. Peace. Doesn't say any of that. It says that it's the fruit of the Spirit. Why aren't I experiencing it? So I go to God, and instead of God going, hey God, hey, remember me, I'm an irritable, exasperated, and I know it's a sin, and that, right? Out. I go, and I look at you. And a lot of times God will say, you know what, Greg, you think you're mad about this? You think it's because you're irritable, exasperated, blah, blah, blah. You know what it's really about? You're not trusting God. You're not trusting me. You got all this fear driving you. And you're twisted internally because of it. And then something sparks you. And you go, well, that's the problem. Well, if you just, if they just, if she just, if this would just, if the political system would just, if the whole entire world would just. And I go, oh, truth. See, it's deeper than my perceived understanding of my problem. I'm totally and utterly incapable of it. Oh, and I don't go, well, I'm just going to trust you. Here, how do I hold my mouth? How do I do that? Give me a box. Give me something to do. Give me a program. Give me 3 points in a poem. No, I go, you know what, God, I can't do that. But you supply faith. You supply me with an understanding of the circumstance and situation from your viewpoint, and I get to then experience confession, which is what? Anybody know confession?
Agreeing with God.
Agreeing with God, seeing it as He sees it. It's co-logosing. It's seeing the truth of it. So I get to go, oh, now I see it like you see it. Oh my goodness. Revelation. Oh my goodness. Salvation. I get to see my plight the way He sees it. And then I get to see His provision. Because just like I could not save myself from my eternity, I cannot save myself from the circumstance. And there's no condemnation there. There's only seeing more of God's grace. And I go, you know what, God, I can't do this, but you know what? I do know this much. You put your Spirit in me, and that's my provision. And I will depend on that, like I depend on my salvation. I will see that I am as dependent on you in this circumstance as for my salvation, and I find you faithful and just every time. And if I don't, it's because I don't get it. And I don't have to get it. Here's what I get. You're faithful and righteous and just. Here's what I get. Your word says this. Your word says I'm not supposed to be. that being this way, working out of my attempt to measure up is going to fail, and I don't have to try to do that, and I can let you define what truth is in my life, and I can hold on to you, okay? So I get to do confession. I get to go back to God, and instead of saying, hey, I'm an angry guy, I hate it, anger's a sin. Or I get to go, instead of going, I made that sound light, but it was never light for me. It was always, I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't do this. But I get to go back to God, and I get to go, just like I trust you for my salvation, I trust you for your provision and love in my life. I can't love this person. I've tried. It works until it doesn't. But I believe you want to love them through me. And guess what happens when that happens? They get to see God loving them through you. And they get to go, wow, that's not Greg Trotter. Because I know who Greg Trotter is. I've been around him enough to know that I'm seeing something that doesn't make sense to me here. What is that? Tell me how you did that. Tell me how that occurs. And then I get to go, I don't get it either, except it's God. I get to see God work. You get to see God work. We get to see His grace manifested. So now I can actually repent. I can actually go, I see where I'm going here. I'm believing that it's all on me, and I am capable, and I should be doing something instead of. Some people walked in there, I don't know what I'm doing. It's going to look crazy, but it's true. I should be doing this. Don't you wish you got here earlier? And guess what? When I'm doing this, that circumstance doesn't mean anything anymore. Why? Because I'm looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of my faith. I'm being God's dog. When I stop making it about me and Laura, or me in that circumstance, or me in this thing, or me in this what I'm seeing is not good, or me as what I'm seeing is adverse, when I stop making it about that and I start making it about my relationship with God, I have victory because He is victorious. So what does victory look like? Victory looks a lot like salvation to me. A continuous manifestation of my inability to declare what's good or adverse, my inability to overcome my sin, my inability to meet a standard, my inability to understand. Fill in the blank. My inability, we go on all day, but we're running out of time. My inability to do it, and my need for God's continued provision for me. He gets to define what truth is. He gets to define the good and the adverse in my life. He gets to define what victory looks like, because guess what? When I meet him and I come away, when I meet him in the midst of my need, and I come away with the confidence that he cares for me, and that he's made provision for me, and then he meets me where I am, and then he draws me to himself, because he's more interested in, think about this for a second, I'll leave you with this thought. Lord, we've cast out demons, we've done many wonders in your name. What does he say? Depart from me, thou wicked eye. He didn't say, you didn't do it right, you didn't do it well enough, you didn't do. What does he say? I never knew you. What does he want from us? He wants intimacy and relationship. That's what he wants from us. And he is extending himself to us. And we would like to do for him instead of be his. And we don't have to worry about, well, nothing will get done, because you know what, that dog, you know what I'm talking about, that dog continues to look for him. And he says, okay, we're backing up now. Okay, you want me to sit? It's an intense, determined involvement with the will of the master. And I'll tell you what, if you can go without doing after that, you might want to look at your salvation. I hate to say that. But if you can see God work in your life and you see God manifesting himself for your benefit and your salvation, and you think that just saying you're unable to do anything will keep you from the joy of interaction with God, then I don't know what to say to you. And all turn your eyes upon Jesus. Tell me. Say that verse. Say the
Turn
say
your
the
eyes
word.
upon Jesus, look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of your glorious race.
Let's pray. Thanks, God, that the way you've manifested yourself in my life is that as I become more suspect of myself and my understanding and my ability to define what truth is and my ability to find what's good for me and what's bad for me, as I begin to see that that's not my purview, as I begin to see that that's not, that I don't have the ability to do that because I don't see the beginning from the end. And I don't see how you want to manifest yourself. That as I do that, I'm drawn closer to you. And you manifest yourself more. And I get to see you in me and others do too. Thanks for your grace. Might we more fully know the truth of you and your provision. In Jesus' name, amen.